a critical role. Large fleets play a critical role in the transition to zero-emission technologies. These fleets typically have the capital, infrastructure, and operational readiness to adopt ZEV trucks to scale, and many have already demonstrated a willingness to do so. Previously, the board approved staff's recommendation to remove eligibility for fleets larger than 50 trucks in the fiscal year 2024-25 funding plan. However, given recent shifts in the regulatory landscape and evolving market conditions, we now recognize the need to adapt. To that end, HVIP staff is recommending that the reintroduction of voucher eligibility for large fleets. The move is not just strategic, it is necessary. Large fleets have the means, dealer relationships, and deployment capacity to act quickly, and their participation can provide immediate support and stability to the ZEV market during this transitional period. At the same time, our commitment to equity remains unwavering. HVIP will reserve $5 million specifically for small fleets, ensuring that they continue to have dedicated access to funding regardless of large fleet participation. Additionally, the ISEF program, which focuses solely on small and priority fleets, will be available. Together, these actions will allow us to accelerate market momentum while preserving equity across fleet sizes. In addition, CARB will be looking to open eligibility to fleet management companies in the upcoming implementation manual for HVIP. Improve flexibility and equity for all fleet sizes. To ensure HVIP remains responsive to current market conditions and stakeholder needs, we are proposing several targeted changes to re-enable participation by large fleets. First, we're recommending that the program be reopened to all fleet sizes, as we just discussed. This reflects the reality that every fleet, large or small, has a role to play in scaling zero-emission vehicle adoption. Second, we propose removing outdated restrictions that apply only to large fleets, such as voucher value reductions and the bulk fleet purchase requirements. These policies have become limiting and are no longer aligned with the current market environment. Third, to maintain equity and prevent over-concentration of funds, we're introducing a voucher cap. Each fleet, regardless of size, would be allowed to up to 20 unredeemed vouchers at any one time. This helps manage demand while still giving large fleets meaningful access. In addition, small fleets will only be allowed to receive the small business voucher amount of up to 5 vehicles lifetime. After the lifetime cap, fleets can continue to receive HVIP vouchers, but would be limited to the base voucher amount. These recommendations are designed to bring immediate stability to the ZEV market while protecting access for small fleets and ensuring HVIP continues to be an effective tool for clean transportation investment. Other changes to the program include CARB and CalSTAR are working to establish a pilot program that would allow fleet applicants to receive a voucher for Class 2B vehicles, which could then be used to make a purchase. The dealer would then use the existing HVIP process to redeem the voucher and complete the sale. Finally, the board approved the increase of incentive amounts for zero-emission conversions by increasing the voucher amount from 50% of a new truck voucher to 75% of a new truck voucher. Proposed changes to voucher amounts. As we look to the future of HVIP, it's critical that we maximize the reach of our funding and amplify our impact on the zero-emission vehicle marketplace. We must do this at scale, while also ensuring that funds are distributed in a way that recognizes the need of small and large fleets. With that in mind, staff has recommended an update to voucher amounts. In addition, we're proposing a new simplified two-tier voucher structure. This would replace the current complex system of plus-ups and make it easier to understand, administer, and align with market needs. These changes are designed to strengthen HVIP's effectiveness and ensure we continue to drive meaningful progress in clean transportation and support the ZEV marketplace. This is our new voucher amount tables. As we continue to evolve HVIP to better serve the market and our communities, we're simplifying the way voucher amounts are calculated. Moving forward, we'll transition to a straightforward two-tier system, a base voucher and a small business voucher for trucks. Over the years, various plus-ups, including those for disadvantaged communities and drayage, have added layers of complexity. While these were well-meaning, they created confusion and administrative challenges. This new structure brings clarity and predictability for dealers, fleet operators, and all program participants. It aligns incentives with real market needs, ensuring support remains meaningful but not excessive. Fuel cell vehicles will still receive double the base voucher, and our commitment to disadvantaged communities remains unchanged. We'll continue to track DAC funding closely to ensure it remains consistent with historical contributions. In addition, it is critical that HVIP maximizes funding and amplifies its impact on the ZEV marketplace with scale, while ensuring efficient distribution of available funds. To achieve this goals, it is necessary to adjust voucher amounts to reflect changing market conditions and accommodate large fleet purchases. These changes are designed to streamline HVIP while preserving its core mission, supporting equitable, clean transportation at scale. Comments and questions. Please use the raise hand function or press the number 2 if calling in. Please state your name and affiliation, if any, before asking a question or making a comment. In addition, we expect quite a few comments today, and so if you could please limit your comments or questions to 1 minute. We will also be available after today's meeting via email to answer any questions or follow-up comments. So that is also available to folks. With that in mind, if you want to go ahead and follow the prompts here, if you have a question, we'll start going down the lists.
Okay, so first person is Matt Schrapp. I have unmuted you, so please state your name and affiliation.
Thank you, Matt Schrapp, Chief Executive Officer with the Harbor Trucking. I have a couple questions here. So encouraged to see the removal of fleet size and the reallocation of some of those unused funds. So my assumption is here that the unused funds will be then, I'm not sure, that background's not on my end, but the unused funds will be subject to the whatever the requirements are that are going to be included in the updated funding plan, I imagine. That's my first question.
Just to clarify, Matt, were you saying that would the updated funds require, so to what we presented today would apply to all funds that would be available this year?
Just checking that these funds weren't required to be following previous funding plans as they were from.
No, they will not. No,
Okay.
these are going to be immediate changes.
Great. And then do the conversions have a cap on them? Number of conversions that can be done by one particular applicant?
No, so they would just, the caps that are existing for fleets that are in today's presentation and in the IM would apply. But there would be no special caps just for conversions.
Okay, thank you. And then what is the definition of a small business to get the higher voucher amount?
That definition hasn't changed, so it'd be what's in the HVIP implementation manual today.
Okay, and there's no additional money that's going to be allocated for drayage operators in this particular tranche of funding?
So the tranche of funding is HVIP standard. So drayage funding is that side aside is separate from this, right? And so the cancellation of vouchers is and the returning of those funds is all in HVIP standard. So you know, there could be a potential allocation for other set asides and HVIP standard in the funding plan cycle. That will be discussed later in this year. We'll have another policy work group in around July to go through that. But really what we're talking about today is just funds that were already previously allocated to HVIP standard. They are for vouchers that are now likely going to be canceled or unredeemed and come back into the pot. And then so that's what we're discussing today.
Okay, and to that point, though, you're saying that that money is going to be subject to whatever the updated funding plan incorporates, right? If it's just fleet size differences, et cetera, then that
No,
is
what we've presented today will apply immediately to any funds returned this year from unredeemed vouchers in Q3. So,
okay, I'm sure there's a lot of other questions. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you. All right, next person is, and I apologize for pronouncing, Lynette Papinzia. I've unmuted your, please state your name.
Yeah, hi, Lynette Zapp, Dome Partnership Consulting. So I had a few questions. You've stated there's a separate one for the small fleets. How are you defining small fleet exactly? I just want to make sure we're super clear on that.
Yeah, so there is no change in the definition of a small fleet. I would
Okay,
refer folks back to the HVIP IM from the previous year.
that hasn't changed.
Yeah, that
Okay.
has not changed, no. So there's a
Okay.
revenue component and a number of truck components to that as well.
Okay. Um, for the HVIP fleets that are under 20, you could stack stuff before with other state grants. Is that going to remain the same?
Yeah, no change to that.
No change to that. Um, I think the other ones I had were, you said, there's the class two, 2B and 3. Before, no pickup trucks could be on this. Has that changed at all if they fall into a 2B or 3 category, or are pickup trucks still out?
No, so there's no change in any equipment eligibility requirements, and what's eligible today is available in the HVIP catalog.
Okay, so that's not going to change. All right. Um, and then I think my other last question on the HVIP was, I noticed there is a huge change in the class 3 and class 4 incentives. They're actually proposed to decrease quite a bit. I know you mentioned large businesses, but small businesses operate 99% of the fleets on California's roads, and this will really disadvantage them.
Yeah, so I mean, part of the HVIP's program is to kind of balance kind of what's going on in the marketplace and what incentive is needed from the marketplace to make a purchase decision to ZEVs. And what we've seen in the class 3 and 4 from our market research is a significant decline in the price. And our voucher tables were kind of outdated, especially given what was going on with plus ups and where those vouchers were ending up at. And so based off of that, and now the introduction of large fleets, we feel that based off of our studies on pricing and market conditions, that we're appropriately pricing that voucher amount for both large fleets and small fleets.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, next person is Jamie Levin. I've unmuted your microphone. Please state your name and affiliation.
Hi, Jamie Levin with the Center for Transportation and the Environment. And I'm looking at the reduction in fuel cell truck voucher amounts. That's a $110,000 reduction over what's available now under the voucher program. And what I would say is we're seeing considerable interest among fleets, drayage fleets for fuel cell technology. And that reduction from what is currently $270,000 is now $160,000. That seems like a pretty heavy hit. I'm concerned that it will make it very difficult to cover those extra costs associated with fuel cell trucks, even though those trucks, Class 8 trucks, perform exceptionally well. So is there any room for modifying those recommended reductions?
So, we've taken that into consideration, and really, when we look at the new proposed base voucher amount, we have to really account for large fleets there. And so, for that reason, we need to balance that. If you actually notice, the small fleet provision actually gives a little bit more than they were getting prior to the change. And so, we've taken that consideration that you mentioned, and we've kind of had to make a decision there to balance both competing interests. And so that's where that number is kind of coming from.
Yeah, and I truly understand that, but your opening comments were really quite relevant about why large fleets are instrumental, critical to rolling out these advanced technologies. They have the administrative capability, they have the flexibility, they have the capital capability, at least to manage a new technology that's still very expensive. So all I'm suggesting is that hit from 270 to 160, that's a $110,000 reduction. I would give serious consideration to at least allowing some number. Maybe it's 50 trucks or a limit of 50 trucks or some number that would allow that the previous amounts for drayage to continue to be permitted for large fleets.
Yeah, we'll take that under consideration after today's work group, and then to the rest of the staff, and we'll kind of consolidate that with the other comments.
Yeah, I just want to reemphasize how challenging it is to launch these new technologies, the costs across the board. And so it's important that we try and reach parity with incumbent technologies for the large fleets, if we really want this technology to play out to the entire industry. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie, for your comment. We'll definitely take that under consideration. Yeah.
Okay, next have maker. I've unmuted your mic. Go ahead and state your name and affiliation.
Yes. Can you hear me?
A little bit louder.
Great. Corey Shoemaker with Utility Global. Wanted to ask a clarification question on these new voucher amounts and confirm that there are no other additions to this amount for anything like there was in the past, right? Disadvantaged community, others, other things. So you mentioned strictly 160,000 for a new base voucher, which is the total voucher that you can get if you're a large fleet, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. This would replace any plus ups just for trucks. So
Yeah. Okay. Great to understand that. And I think that given this drastically lower amount, we're not going to see much uptick in adoption of fuel cell electric vehicles and perhaps not also battery electric vehicles of the Class 8 size, just given the large costs incurred there.
fair enough. Yep. Well, and again, we have to balance kind of the large fleets and small fleets. I think we've talked about that previously, but we'll take all the comments today and take it back to the group before we finalize our recommendations.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Next, I have Colin Sutton. Please, your
Hello.
mic is unmuted. Please state your name and affiliation.
Hi, Colin Sutton, Galpin Rentals. I just wanted to see, now that it's opened back up to the large fleets, is there still a restriction on rental fleets?
So we'll have some updated language in our HVIP implementation manual that'll come out fairly shortly, and that will allow some flexibility for those types of arrangements. So.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I think because it can be a broad reach of people who would not necessarily be in an electric vehicle, but would get the opportunity to do it over certain jobs. So I think that'd be beneficial. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Next, we have Wesley Lowe. I've unmuted your microphone. Please state your name and affiliation.
Hey, Danielle Smith with Kingsburg Truck Center. I think I might have gotten stuck under Wesley's name. So my name's Danielle, Kingsburg Truck Center. I have a quick question about the table we just looked at. Is this table specific for HVIP or is it also for ISEF as well? The pricing we just saw for the vouchers.
So ISEF will be adopting this structure as well, but they'll speak more to that later today. So you can definitely, I think they'll be the third presentation this afternoon. And so, but they can speak more to specifically how this would be used in ISEF.
Okay. And I know you guys discussed plus ups, and I apologize. I had bad reception when we went over that. Is the disadvantaged community plus up going to be available with these vouchers as well?
So this voucher table will replace all plus ups for standard HVIP for trucks. And so the disadvantaged community plus up has been integrated in the voucher amounts that are presented today.
Okay, so it won't be an additional 15%.
It won't be an additional plus up. No, these tables will reflect what you would get if you're fall into either category.
Okay. That's it for my questions. Thank you guys.
No problem.
Okay. All right. Next, I have there you go. Claire Bachman. Please, I've unmuted your mics. Please state your name and affiliation.
Hi, this is Claire Bachman. I'm with Exos Trucks. And I have some questions and comments regarding the updated two-tier voucher table. First off, this feels like a huge deviation from just a year ago when the small fleet base voucher adjustment became a part of the standard HVIP. And I guess some questions I have first would be like, how can you provide any more details on the studies or research that help influence the proposed table? Why now are we grouping class 6 with a lower class? Previously, class 6 was grouped with class 7. And also, like, if you think about it, the base voucher amount for class 6 was 85,000. The small fleet voucher amount only being 5,000 more than that, I don't think that's going to really incentivize small fleets to get class 6 vehicles. Speaking for Exos too, like just based on how much our trucks cost. So I just don't really understand the class 6 voucher amounts and how these would like level the playing fields for small versus large fleets to participate when even the large fleet amount is 30,000.
So we have the large fleet base voucher amount was established with, the certain factors that we believe are happening in the large fleet market. And so that's why those base amounts were set at that level. In addition, we were factoring in kind of invoice data that we've had from HVIP for the last so many years of running the program. And us and CalStart worked on consolidating that invoice data and utilizing that to kind of develop a understanding of what's going on in the marketplace. We've also had several studies released, including the Class 8 study that was released in a board memo a couple months ago. And so those are the types of research that we've done in kind of establishing where we think the marketplace is and where our vouchers amounts are. But, it is a complicated kind of calculus, right? Because we have to factor in large fleets, we have to factor in what's going on in the market, and we have to factor in how we can maximize the dollars that we have available for the program. And so there's a lot of factors that go into it, but that's where this table was developed from. So.
Okay. And is this table final, or are you still open to amendments?
Well, right, today we're presenting the information, and so we're consolidating the comments that we received from here, and we expect to make a final decision in the next couple of weeks and present a memo to the board with a final recommendation. So.
Okay, and you're saying you've been looking at invoice data from multiple years, and are you accounting for like how, like are you using data from like 2020 or 2019, like in the same
So
way as you would for 2024?
Yeah, and I think I'm kind of getting where you're going at. So we know that the prices have kind of increased in certain periods, and we've had inflationary adjustments and so forth, and taking those accounts. And a lot of the data that we use, particularly in the classes that you're speaking with, are more recent than even some of the data that we use in class 8. So I think in the particular interest that you have of class 6 and 5, that data was more recent, so it's more relevant to what's happening today.
Okay. We will. Oh, I don't know if anyone heard it. We'll move on to the next commenter, Nick Chiappe. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I've unmuted your mic. Please state your name and affiliation.
Hi there, Nick Chappie with the California Trucking Association. Wanted to express our support for CARB's recommendation to open the HVIP to all fleets of all sizes. Zero emission vehicles and its associated charging infrastructure are costly and require large capital investments. Larger fleets specifically are in a position to acquire and pilot test the newer zero emission technology. Allowing these fleets greater than 50 vehicles back into HVIP accelerates market momentum and innovation. We again greatly appreciate CARB taking this into consideration and support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick, for your comment.
Sorry, let's try that again. Next commenter is Christian Corby. I've unmuted your mic. Please state your name and affiliation.
Yes, hello. My name is Christian Corby, and I am the Deputy Executive Director at the California Electric Transportation Coalition. And I wanted to thank CARB staff and voice our support for these changes. We really appreciate all the work that you've been doing on HVIP and kind of leaning in hard on what the changes that need to be made given the new regulatory landscape we find ourselves in. So I wanted to recommend that CARB staff and leadership continue to advocate at the legislature for funding for HVIP. It's critical that it comes this year, and the governors may revise left out any details in terms of what funding we're going to see. So just want to continue to encourage CARB to advocate for funding and long-term funding on that. You know, we need to see like a 10-year plan on what type of funding structures are going to be available for medium and heavy duty ZEVs. And I encourage CARB staff to set a long-term incentive schedule that perhaps steps down those incentive amounts over time to help put downward pressure on pricing and encourage early adoption. Also want to encourage you to consider some flexibility in the vehicle ownership and infrastructure requirements, given the kind of new business structures that are out there to support zero emission vehicles and fleets. We encourage considering that. I'll take the table back to the CalITC members and get some feedback for you on those amounts. I think I'll also work with our HVIP coalition on that. And then the one question I had for you was if you had a sense on how much funding would be available in Q3, it'd be good to know. So thank you so much.
So with the last question regarding an amount of funding available, we will have a number pretty shortly. We are kind of working through the cancellations and kind of that process. So I think that's ongoing. So.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you so much, and look forward to the update coming out before the funding is released. So thank you again.
Mm-hmm.
Great, Christian. Next speaker is Erica Baker. I've unmuted your mic. Please state your name and affiliation.
Hi, Erica Baker with Model 1. I just have some questions pertaining to the small business voucher amount qualifications. Number one, is the small business definition the same as the small fleet definition in the IM, or are you referring to the small business definition as defined by the California Legislative Code? Secondly, are there still plus ups for public school buses? And if not, are public entities eligible for the small business voucher amount?
So the small business definition we refer to would be the one listed in the HVIP IM implementation manual. And so that there's no change to that. So you can just, folks can refer back to that. As far as buses, including school buses and transit buses, there is no change to the way that their vouchers are structured or, including the plus ups and all of that. There's no change to their base voucher or the plus ups.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Next person is Andrew Silverman. I've unmuted your mic. Please state your name and affiliation.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
There we go. Okay. First of all, I just want to thank CARB for hosting this and CalSTAR for hosting this and providing an update. It's at least helpful to have this conversation. I think most of the questions I had when I raised my hand a while ago have been addressed. I do think I heard DAC both ways. I heard initially that it could be added on, and then I heard that it was absorbed. So could you just clarify on DAC whether it can be stacked on top or whether it's fully absorbed, let's say in the class 4 $25,000 number?
So there will be no additional DAC plus up.
Okay.
Yeah, just to be clear. But that's not to say that we have eliminated it. We've included it in our calculation in these base tables. So I think that's where the confusion came from. But these are the voucher amounts you would get either if you were a small business or a larger fleet.
Okay. Second question, I know it was just funding was just touched on. You mentioned this is just return funding. Do we anticipate that at some point in 2025 that new funding will continue to be flowing into the program?
So that decision will be made by the legislature, and based off of whatever, outcome that process has, we'll prepare a funding plan, like we always do every year, and there will be a workshop in July with some of our recommendations if we were to get funding, and other policy recommendations will occur at that time as well. And so that's kind of where that would be dealt with. But
Okay.
yeah, that's why today we can only speak to funds that we have already allocated to HVIP.
Okay. And it sounds like in this meeting, we'll have a subsequent presentation on the ISEF voucher.
Yes, that will be the third presentation today. So.
Okay. And I think just the last, I know it sounds like many of the attendees here are responding to kind of the pricing. I think the only thing I'd throw in from my perspective is it's not necessarily, in order to get full scale adoption, it doesn't necessarily work at price parity. There actually needs to be, from what we've seen, some sort of financial incentive for that end user in order to have the catalyst to make the switch. I think we all believe that once they make the switch, there'll be no regrets and they'll enjoy all the benefits of ZEV. But I would just share, I think, the concern that the numbers as we're seeing them maybe gets to parity of EV versus ICE. But I think from what we've seen and what many of our partners have seen, does that shift the change that we all wish to see? And I think that's the concern that as I'm looking at this for the first time, just kind of my reaction to this. And we appreciate it. We appreciate the ongoing program immensely nonetheless. But we also hope it has the impact that we all want it to see.
All right. Thank you, Andrew, for your comment. We'll definitely take
Thank
that
you.
on board.
Okay, next I have Peter Twill. I've unmuted your mic. Please state your name and affiliation.
Okay, hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, Peter Twill. I'm with Rise-On, which is a class 4 or 5 battery electric truck manufacturer. And many of you guys already know who I am. I'm a big fan of electric vehicles, so I don't mean to be harsh when I talk about some of the numbers. I just want us to get better so we can get more of these trucks on the road. But I have 2 or 3 points I would like to see what your reaction is on this. The number one is talking about the 100 unit, the cap of 100 units per OEM for unredeemed vouchers, because I think that's turned into a little bit, my personal opinion has turned into a little bit of a mess. I use the data you guys came out with in January, your Excel spreadsheet that talks about all the vouchers and what's been redeemed and unredeemed. And currently, from the numbers you guys posted, there's $830 million of unredeemed vouchers. Of that, 711 million, or roughly 85%, is reserved for 10 OEMs. So I don't think there's really a fair distribution. I understand the idea when it first started was if guys were moving if OEMs were moving their vouchers or delivering their vehicles fast enough, they should be given over the cap. And what I found was 31% of all vouchers right now are over 18 months old. So it's not quite working that way. It's not being policed. And as I said, many of these OEMs have over 300 vouchers that they're sitting on. And a lot of us, I don't think that's a fair distribution. My suggestion would be bring back that cap, but drop it down to 50, because I think that would give us all some breathing room. So deliver the vehicle, get another 50 or whatever. Is that possible? Because there's 85% of the vouchers are 10 OEMs right now. And 2 of the companies, by the way, one of them is bankrupt, we all know, and the other one had some issues with their voucher creation. So there's over $300 million that we know should come back. Can you address that?
So to your point about the cap, that is something we can definitely consider in the future funding plan cycle. That work is being done today, so we'll take that comment aboard and discuss it with the team. And then in terms of funding, well, we've kind of already indicated, but we do expect a significant amount of funding to come back via cancellations, and so I think stay tuned for that, and that'll be happening in the next couple months. So.
And again, I want you guys to know I mean well, but and many of you people out there know who I am. I'm trying to make sure that we can do good. But my numbers it should be in excess of 400 million coming back, and I'd be surprised if it wasn't. One other major issue is I've worked at 3 startups, so I really can speak for this. And now I'm working for a legacy OEM. Not all the vehicles are built to the same standards, but we're all given the same money. And the dollar's going down. A lot of us legacies are going to be at a steep disadvantage to some of the imports that are coming in, and the imports are drastically cheaper. I'd say drastically 40% or more cheaper. But when we build to FMVSS and NHTSA standards, UL, etc. And I don't think we're all on the same page with that. Is there? And I know I've talked to Peter about this in the past. Is there? Can you comment on is there something to vet the OEMs and also the vehicles and the OEMs, because some OEMs, as we know in the past, haven't made it past their warranty. So is there anything you're doing to make sure that the money that California's taxpayers are paying are going to go to good expenditures?
So to that point, Peter, it's a little bit off topic for today's work group, but definitely we've heard those comments, and so our team is aware of them, and we have the whole funding plan cycle that's starting to happen where policy changes will happen, but we want to kind of keep today's discussion to the topic of money that's coming back unredeemed. So.
All right. Time check. So on our agenda, we're have HVIP going to 2 p.m. We're almost at 1:45. There's still 25 raised hands, so we're not going to be able to get through all the comments. There will be an upcoming slide that has our contact information for the HVIP team. So please, we've noted your hands on here, but also you can send us your comments and questions in there, and we will review those and take those into consideration. So moving on, I have, and apologize, Alexander Voets. I've unmuted your microphone. Please state your name and affiliation.
Hi, my name is Alex Voets. I'm the general manager at Rising Truck USA. also want to voice that we welcome the removal of the large fleet restriction. It certainly was, I think, a big mistake when that was introduced last year. Certainly hurt the industry pretty significantly, my business as well. So we're welcome that that mistake is being corrected. We also welcome that there's money coming back, but we are very at a loss why there is no money in this pot right now. As you know, electric vehicles do get sold with incentives. The absence of incentives means there are no sales, which means the industry goes down. People are losing their jobs over it. At the same time, we all know sitting here that there is money. We just heard from a previous speaker that 300 million, 31% of the vouchers are over 18 months old. So those are the rules that you put in place. So I really implore you to not be cavalier about it and say the money will come back 2-3 months down the road. These are people's lives here that we're playing with. So I would really implore you to work on this with urgency to have money available for OEMs and customers that really have the intention to put electric trucks on the road. The second comment I would like you to consider is your proposal on the Class 2B distribution of vouchers. The HVIP process has always been through the dealer. That was always the application process, and it has its difficulties. So to now introduce the opportunity for an OEM directly to capture HVIP vouchers is certainly a very drastic competitive disadvantage and changes the industry pretty significantly. So I would ask you to consider that as well.
Yeah, I think just real quick, Alexander, on that point, I think there must have been a confusion there. We aren't changing this to an OEM part for 2Bs. The pilot program is more of a fleets can now apply for a voucher and then be able to use that voucher at dealerships to purchase vehicles. So I don't think there's a deviation there. It's just a more process oriented. And we've taken note of your previous comment as well. So
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next commenter is George Wu. I've unmuted your mic. Please state your name and affiliation.
All right. Very quick question.
hi, George, can you speak up a little bit? It's just a little unclear coming through the mic.
Okay.
Yeah, still not making out.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, there you go. You're much better.
Better. Okay, that's better. All right, this is George Wu from South Coast AKNB. Just have a quick questions. Can Carl Moyer funding and Part 1B funding stack with HVIP?
Yeah, so there's no changes to stacking. So the previous provisions and the HVIP kind of speak to stacking, and kind of that is allowed under certain circumstances. So nothing's changed there. Would all the old rules still apply in terms of stacking?
Yeah, my understanding, they cannot be stacked in the past. I don't know if that's changed or what.
No, there were situations where Carl Mora could stack with HVIP. So.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, next is Efren Hurtado. I've unmuted your mic. Please state your name and affiliation.
Hi, Efren Hurtado with RWC Group, calling you here from Huntington Park, California. We're a commercial truck dealer. Just had a couple questions surrounding the small business voucher. Do you guys know when ISEF will release funds? And then the second part of my question is regarding the new voucher amount tables that were just proposed. When are those anticipated to go into effect?
So these tables will be in effect in the new IM that will be released shortly, probably right before the release of funds. So between Q2 and Q3. And for ISEF, I would kind of refer to the ISEF team. They'll be the third presentation today, and they can speak to that.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next I have Jane Israel. Jane, I've unmuted your mic. Please state your name and affiliation.
Thanks so much. Jane Israel with Highland Electric Fleets. I want to echo what others on the line have already said, being fully supportive of your change regarding large fleets. I think that's a monumental shift that you all are making, and is a great addition to this program. I also think the piloting of enabling fleets to apply directly for vouchers is also a great step, and I look forward to seeing that potentially be applied to other classes of vehicles. I would, as others have shared on the line, like to encourage some increased flexibility in ownership. I know you discussed there might be some changes with rental fleets. Certainly, there are lots of different business models out there that enable fleets to electrify more seamlessly and with a high performing application. And so would encourage you to enable that sort of flexible partnership. I also just wanted to confirm, and apologies, Inder, I know you already said this, and we're asking you to triple confirm this funding table, but just for clarity's sake, for school bus fleets, they will still have the same funding amounts and plus ups that they had previously experienced in other HVIP rounds. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's correct. And that would apply for transit buses as well.
Perfect. Thank you all so much.
No problem. Thank you for your comments.
Okay, next is David Biaggi with, well, actually, I know you're up. Your mic is unmuted. Please state your name and affiliation. David, you there? Yeah, you, I've unmuted your mic, but you.
Maybe muted on your end.
Yeah.
We go. Here we go. Can you
There
hear
we
me?
go.
All right. A couple of quick questions. Can we go back to the slide that has the rolling cap of 20? You said something. Is that a customer cap on
That's
how
a customer
many?
cap. Yeah.
Customer cap. Okay. Of rolling. Okay. All right. Very good. And the ability of fleets to apply for the voucher themselves versus the dealer applying for the voucher, is that new with this program?
No, that was actually in the funding plan last year, and it's a pilot program for just class 2Bs. So it doesn't
For
apply to all
just
trucks.
2Bs.
Just
Okay.
2Bs,
All right.
yeah.
So not for the big commercial vehicles. All right.
Not at this
All
time.
right. And has there been any conversation about, and I know I'm kind of speaking out of the box here, but about things like insurance, fuel price relief, financing? These are all parts of the puzzle that we really don't apply anything to, but they're big pieces of the puzzle, especially for smaller fleets. I just wanted to know if any of that stuff is made the roundtable on your end.
Well, I think the third presentation presented today, ISEF, will speak to more of this kind of innovative strategies that they're undertaken. So I know that there's more discussion of some of those strategies there. Particularly today, we're really focused on not just kind of what we presented today. There is potential policy changes in the upcoming funding plan, and that July work group will kind of talk about those types of proposals in there. So.
Okay. I do want to agree with Christian Colby that, year to year funding plans, the cycle, it doesn't really match the cycle, and it makes it very difficult to make decisions if we don't have like a multi-year sort of at least a game plan that we can look at to try to get some adoption. So I just wanted to add my voice to his, and to say that I appreciate the HVIP efforts toward hydrogen as the fuel of the future, but there is no hydrogen in Northern California. Most of the hydrogen was being provided by Hyla, and they're bankrupt. And now I've got trucks deployed that can't even fuel in Northern California. These are enormous problems that no amount of a funding program is going to solve unless we choose to address that particular issue. And I just wanted to put that on the table with you guys.
I appreciate your comments, David, and we've taken note, and look forward to speaking with you in the future.
Okay. Got 5 minutes left. Gonna try to get a couple more in here. Next person is Tim McRae. I've unmuted your mic. Please state your name and affiliation.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. My name is Tim McRae. I'm with the California Hydrogen Business Council. A couple of comments and then a couple of questions. We support the allowing of larger fleets to access these funds. We think that's a step in the right direction. We support the incentive amounts increasing. And when you just showed the most recent slide, I thought when you originally said that the incentive amounts could increase from 50 to 70%, I thought that was a vehicle cost. And then when you just showed it again, I was wondering if that's conversion kits only.
That's conversion kits only. So just, yeah.
I thought that was going to apply to vehicles because that is sort of flying in the face of the amount that is now lower, particularly for fuel cell electric vehicles. As a couple commenters have mentioned, going from 160 down to 270, from 270,000 down to 160 is not going to incentivize the uptake of fuel cell electric vehicles. I will note, pursuant to the comment that was just made, that Pilot Travel Centers has a couple of grants from the CEC to set up hydrogen refueling infrastructure for heavy duty. I believe it's in Lodi and Ripon. So there is going to be more hydrogen refueling infrastructure, and we want to see that continue. We're going to have member companies continue to apply for that money. So the other question that I have is, I have not had a chance to run all of this, particularly this last table, by our member companies. So I was wondering what the opportunity for written comment is. And you say that that basically you'll present this as a final to the board. What time would you like some written comment by?
It would be sooner than later. We are, as we indicated, we have some upcoming pressing deadlines. Q3, we want to be releasing this funding and making it available. So, you can imagine that there's a lot of administrative work that needs to be done pretty quickly here to make that date happen. So.
Okay, thank you. So we can take one more commenter. I've written down the names of the next hands in order in the event that if we have more time at the end of the other presentations, then we can take those. But the next person, so what I'm saying is after Catherine Churchill, I will be lowering the hands so that we can move on to the core presentation. So Catherine, I have unmuted your microphone. Please state your name and affiliation.
Woohoo, thank you. My name is Catherine Churchill, and I'm with Motive Electric Trucks. We're a medium-duty truck manufacturer out of the Bay Area. Firstly, we're really grateful CARB is opening HVIP back up to large fleets. We have been around for 15 years, and our large fleet customers are a proving point of how HVIP in California enable nationwide EV adoption. They start with 5 vouchers here 1 year, then 20 the next year, then 20 the next. And then they take those learnings to other states. And we definitely couldn't have gone this far without California and CARB. This is a very critical year for the medium duty space. Check the news is all I would say there. So we need all the help we could get. $30,000 is a significant change from the previous voucher amounts we were getting. There's a lot of administrative work, and we have encountered many of the dealers that used to process our vouchers over the last several years have flat out said, we're not doing HVIP anymore because we can't float the cost for, the whole process for however long it takes. So taking our carrot and turning it into a third, and then not sorry, let me take a step back. Has CARB considered having some kind of financial relief for the dealers who do take on the administrative and financial burden of taking on HVIP vouchers? And in addition to that, 30,000, I think a big concern of ours is that that is not going to be a significant enough carrot for both dealers to take on HVIP vouchers and for a customer to go through the administrative burden as well. In addition to that, we have some customers where it took either CalStar or Tetra Tech 6 months from delivery to voucher redemption of processing time. So those are my comments for now, and thank you again.
Yes, thanks for your comment, Catherine. We'll definitely take on board with that. I think that there's a lot of complexity with dealers processing, but we do have a duty to make sure that vouchers are vetted. We do that in a, we try to attempt to do that in a timely fashion. And we are aware of delays, but there's a lot of complexity. A lot of times paperwork's not completed properly and things like that from fleets and dealers. And then there's also other relationships there as well. So we are constantly evaluating that and trying to make that process more streamlined and efficient. And I think that some of the changes that are happening in the IM are attempting to do that. But we do take that on board. So with that, it is 2:02 p.m. now, and so I do owe some time to the other presenters. So I will go ahead and hand it off to Nicole, and she will introduce herself and begin the core presentation.
All right, good afternoon, folks, and welcome to the second item on our agenda for today's work group on the Clean Off-Road Equipment Voucher Incentive Project, better known as CORE. My name is Nicole Hutchinson, and I'm the lead staff overseeing the CORE program. My contact information will be posted at the end of this presentation, so if you have additional questions or comments after this, you're welcome to contact me via email, and I'll get back to you and answer your questions. I'm going to start by clarifying that this meeting is about implementing the heavy-duty CORE project for 2025 and incorporating direction from the board as was approved during the November 2024 board hearing. So we will be hosting a separate meeting for policy changes and a funding plan workshop to be scheduled this summer, likely July. Next slide. Now a little overview of CORE. CORE is a first come, first served program. It's designed to speed up the deployment of advanced off-road technology by making it easier for fleets to access funding. And this access to funding helps cover the higher upfront costs that come with new technologies. CORE is focused on commercial-ready products that haven't yet gained a big foothold in the market. And one key benefit of the CORE program is that it does allow stacking, meaning you can combine CORE funding with other incentive programs as long as you follow the rules for each. And you do not have to scrap existing equipment to participate, which can make it a little bit easier for fleets to adopt new technology. Finally, there are extra funding enhancements available for infrastructure related to the project, also plus-ups for small businesses and purchasers with equipment domiciled in priority communities, including disadvantaged and low-income communities. CORE has been really successful in providing incentive funding for zero-emission off-road equipment here in California. This slide gives kind of a snapshot of where we are to date. So far, the project has funded over 3,000 pieces of equipment and supported more than 700 businesses and fleets. CORE has also made it a priority to invest in priority populations, including low-income and disadvantaged communities, with 70% of project funds going to these communities. In 2024 alone, 1,193 pieces of heavy-duty equipment have been deployed and are currently in operation. And looking forward to this year, despite a reduced budget for 2025, we'll continue to offer incentives for heavy-duty off-road, heavy-duty zero-emission off-road equipment. All right. So now turning to changes in the IM. So in November 2024, the board approved the funding plan for clean transportation incentives, including an allocation of 14.97 million from the Air Quality Improvement Fund for core vouchers. For this round of core, we're focusing funding on 4 categories, which group equipment. Due to limited funds, we needed to consolidate categories. If additional funding becomes available in the future, we'll likely revisit these groupings, but this is where we stand today. The 4 funding categories are 1, construction and ag, 2, forklifts, cargo handling equipment, transport refrigeration units, and railcar movers/locomotives. 3, mobile power units or MPUs and airport ground support equipment. And then finally, commercial hovercraft. All right, just to make sure these slides match. Perfect. All right, so this slide represents the changes to core as directed by the board. So for fiscal year 24-25, the implementation manual will reflect the following modifications. Terminal tractors will graduate out of the program, and I'll go into that in more detail in just a moment. Participant eligibility will be limited to small businesses and public agencies for fiscal year 24-25. While CORE has always supported small businesses through voucher enhancements, this year we're narrowing eligibility due to funding constraints. As I said in the last slide, if additional funding becomes available in future years, we'll likely revisit this policy. But that's where we are, and that's what the board adopted in November. We are also increasing the voucher cap for large forklifts up to $1 million. And finally, we're restructuring the equipment eligibility application portion of the implementation manual to help streamline the process. All right, so now I want to speak a little bit more on terminal tractors. So a large part of what drove the graduation of terminal tractors from the program had to do with their success. They have a lower total cost of ownership, which helps them compete with their combustion counterparts. Additionally, other scrap and replace funding programs are available for terminal tractors, including the Carl Moyer program, the Community Air Protection Program, or CAP, and VW. That said, the funding plan did state that CARB could consider retaining eligibility for higher weight capacity terminal tractors, which are used in ports and intermodal rail yards. To help with that decision, we'd like to gather information from you all this year. We're specifically looking for things like sales data, operational costs, and anything else that could help us better understand whether and how to bring those larger terminal tractors back into the program. And we look forward to your feedback on this and welcome additional meetings and discussion. This will be a topic during that summer funding plan workshop. All right. All right, in addition to the changes I've already covered, we're also making a few other updates to the implementation manual. Historically, CORE has had a 6-month application window. This year, we're reducing it to 3 months based on application trends we've seen. Next, regarding vouchers for rental and leasing companies, going forward, the rental or leasing company will be considered the purchaser under the program, regardless of the length of the lease, and a purchaser cannot be their own dealer. We'll also require the lease agreement at voucher redemption. And finally, on this topic, we will require the dealer to submit the lease agreement during voucher redemption. We're also expanding eligibility to include narrow-body aircraft tugs alongside our wide-body tugs that are already eligible. We are removing the annual user experience report requirement. These reports were helpful in the early years of the program, but at this point, we don't see them adding much value. We are slightly modifying the small business definition. Currently, a small business is defined based on both the number of employees and gross receipts. Going forward, we will focus solely on gross receipts, specifically businesses with an average revenue of 15 million or less. And finally, we're tightening voucher redemption deadlines. Today, dealers have up to 60 days after a voucher expires to submit materials. Going forward, all redemption documents must be submitted by the voucher expiration date. All right, that concludes my presentation on updates to CORE's implementation manual. We'll be posting the revised draft in a few weeks and aim to provide it at least 60 days prior to relaunching the CORE program this summer. Now I can answer any questions you may have. So just as with Inder on HVIP, next slide. Please use the raise hand function or press the number 2 if calling. Please state your name and affiliation, if any, before asking your question or making a comment. Thanks.
Okay. So first person is Anthony Williams. I've unmuted your microphone. Please state your name and affiliation.
Hello, and thank you. Thank you all. Thank you both. This is Anthony Williams with Ballard Partners on behalf of Novalis Energy Systems. We have always appreciated our partnership with you all on the core program, particularly as it relates to the transit refrigeration units that our technology supports. We just wanted to, first of all, again, thank you for all of the continued engagement. I think we all share the goal of increasing utilization of electrified units for TRUs. And so we just, also appreciate your comments, Nicole, about last year, then obviously looking forward to next year. So we wanted to just make sure that we pointed out a few things that we think could enhance the program and utilization of the vouchers for the program. First being one you touched on, which is the small business restriction for core. We obviously share the economic development goals of that policy approach, but also think that there may be ways to, address the larger goal of reducing, particulate matter, and again, having additional utilization of the vouchers. So we would love to be able to explore with you ways that we can, again, support small businesses, but allow larger businesses to participate who, again, can account for larger proportions of particulate matter in the use of diesel engines and transitioning those without crowding out small businesses. So we'd love to explore some ideas that we have for approaching that. Secondly, with respect to the repower allowance, currently the requirement is for a fully electrified unit, including the, obviously the units that are constructed with a fully electric refrigeration unit to allow those formerly diesel powered refrigeration units to simply be modified. So that is an area again where I think we can work with you to again try to increase some utilization there. And then finally, the program currently allows for a fail-safe allowance, a diesel fail-safe allowance for emergency response fleets, and then for a limited time for traditional fleets. Again, in terms of reducing anxiety, increasing utilization, for those who are concerned, to take a look at that as a possibility for some increased flexibility, so that again we can broaden utilization and let the market drive down costs further as folks are more comfortable transitioning to these electrified units. So anyway, I'll end my comments there.
Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate that. And, I think I share your sentiment in terms of opening the program up to businesses of larger sizes. That's just a decision that our board made in November. I think based on the fact that we just have limited funds, I definitely recognize that the off-road space, lags behind where we are on-road, and we want to make sure these incentives are available to everyone. But with the constraints that we're seeing in the budget, we just needed to figure out where we wanted to prioritize those funds. And so we, wanted to lift up small businesses. But as I said during the presentation, in the future, if we receive additional funds, we will definitely revisit that requirement. And then to your comments on equipment eligibility, welcome. I know you're already speaking with Jessica Monterosa, who's on the call here. She's our equipment eligibility expert. And so welcome additional conversations offline to kind of hear your thoughts on that and what we can do to improve. So thanks. Oh,
excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, folks, we're having some technical difficulties in headquarters, so we've lost the slides for a moment. So give us 1 minute. Okay. Sorry, folks.
Okay, so the next commenter is Mark, apologies, Roast. And I've unmuted your microphone. Please state your name and affiliation.
Mark, are you there?
Mark, you can unmute your mic.
Mark Roos, do you have the ability to unmute? We'll give you a second.
Okay.
All right, I guess the next commenter.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, there we go. He just came on. All right, go ahead.
I'm interested in, I heard something about a upfit kit or repower kit. And I would hope that that applies to both the vehicle and the TRU. And also, we're a tiny little company. It would be good to have some sort of support for earlier startups. I don't know. We don't have any product ready yet. That's what I'm saying. Is there anything that you can do in that, in terms of promising technology that isn't quite there yet?
So what I would say is the core program is for what we could consider commercial ready technology. We do have a demos and pilots program called Shift, which supports sort of startup and new technology, but core is dedicated to commercially ready tech, and how we define that is you need to have at least one sale of that model that you're bringing into the program. And
Yeah.
if you want to talk demo and pilots, happy to connect you with my colleagues on the Shift program if you shoot me a note.
Yeah. Okay. Also on the repower end, there is somebody who has commercial ready technology that's already been used at very small scale. Is there funding for both traction, both vehicle as well as TRUs?
So we do allow conversion kits kind of across the board, and each conversion kit that we take into the program is on a case-by-case basis. You submit an application to our equipment eligibility folks and they review that. So because we are off-road, we will fund just a conversion kit for a TRU separately. In terms of vehicles, it is an off-road program and we are graduating terminal tractors. So, I'd want to know what specific piece of equipment you're thinking of, but hopefully that helps.
Yeah, particularly classes 4, 5, and 6 are pretty much ready. Actually 3, 4, 5, and 6 class conversion kits are ready to go from this person.
For on-road vehicles?
Yeah, for on-road vehicles, but also for off-road. It doesn't really care whether it's on-road or off-road. So we could do both.
Okay, well, I would encourage you so again, I think the prior slide has contact information for both myself as well as Jessica, who's our equipment eligibility person. And so she'll be able to help guide you through the process. And so if it is a fit for the core program, that's the first step.
Yeah. I won't be able to reach that slide. I'm calling in on my phone.
Well, they are on the website. So so you should be able to find them. But Mark, I will make a note to reach out to you as well.
Thank you very much.
Person is Anjali Deodar. I've unmuted your microphone. Apologies. Please state your name and affiliation.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. My name is Anjali Devdar. I work for Viatech Incorporated. We have a auxiliary portable mobile power unit that we're hoping to get core qualified. Since you mentioned, Nicole, that you have there's going to be a new implementation guide and a manual coming in a few weeks. And with the changes, we were wondering whether we should still go ahead and put in the application now or wait until the new manual comes out. I kind of wouldn't want to redo stuff if we needed to. So what's your advice there?
Sure. Please apply now. If we will take your application based on the IM as was public when you submitted. And then I know, Jessica, if you want to unmute any other advice, I think we're hoping if you want to be part of the next relaunch, I want to say we're hoping to get manufacturer applications in by June 18th. Doesn't mean if you get an application in after that you won't be, but it's just if you want to build in enough lead time, June 18th would be a good date. Jessica, anything to add?
No, that's right. We're recommending June 18th to submit all new applications, and that will give us staff enough time to review the applications. We usually do take the 45 review day period that's in the implementation manual, so please submit those as soon as possible.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, next person is Brady Lewis. I've unmuted your microphone. Please state your name and affiliation.
Hello, thank you. Brady Lewis from Case Construction. I just have a couple questions for you. The 14.97 million, that's divided amongst the 4 categories, is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. Okay, and I was actually looking at my notes from last year, and compared to what the last funding cycle was, if I remember or my notes are right, you had like 14 million, but then there was another 50 million that came from another source. So this new upcoming cycle is whatever 14 million versus 60 some odd million from the last cycle. Is that roughly right?
So actually, last year we launched with about 126 million, and this year we are launching with about 15. It might be more depending on cancellations and expirations that happen in the next few months, but probably not significantly more. Maybe I would estimate maybe 20 million or so, but definitely at least the 15 that was allocated. And that is just a product of the budget situation. And I think for those who are tracking it, you know, we're still waiting to see what the legislature does this year, but we are using funds from the Air Quality Improvement Fund, Air Quality Improvement Program, to support CORE this year.
Okay, yeah, so you're 10% of what you were roughly.
Yeah.
My last question is just timing. You talked about that the implementation manual would go out 60 days before the next cycle. If I remember correctly, last cycle it was like August-ish. Is that still what you're thinking as far as when the next round would open? Or I know you may not have an exact date, but I'm just trying to get a ballpark.
Yeah, we're aiming mid-August.
Okay, thank you.
Next.
Okay, next commenter is Dave Rogers. I've unmuted your microphone. Please state your name and affiliation. Press the wrong button there.
Can you speak up a bit?
Please, Dave Rogers.
Sorry, folks, give us a moment. Also, just a time check that we will be wrapping up the core stuff by 2:30, but like I said, my email was on that slide, and feel free to reach out with any questions.
Dave Rogers, hand up. Your microphone is unmuted.
Hi, Dave Rogers with Zero Truck and Energy. We're a zero emission truck dealership in Northern California. Nicole, do you mind just reiterating what you said about the rental and leasing companies, how that's changing?
Sure, give me a moment. Let me just pull up my notes. All right. So for rental leasing companies, so in the IM right now, it's a bit funky. It says if you're doing short-term leases, then you, the leasing company, are considered the purchaser under the program and are obligated to abide by the terms and conditions of the program. And if you have a lease longer than 3 years, then that end user is considered the purchaser. So we're changing that to just say, regardless of the leasing term, the leasing company will be considered the purchaser under the program. And the other major change is, or significant change is, the purchaser cannot be their own dealer. Manufacturers would have to submit.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we have Jackson Alvarez. I've unmuted your microphone. Please state your name and affiliation.
Yes, thank you. Jackson Alvarez from Ev Electric. My more than a question is more of a comment, but something that was brought up by Anthony Williams about being able to repurpose diesel TRUs, whether they're used or new, and be part of this program. Given that the brand new ETRUs are not truly commercializable and out there, and and two, they're about 2 to 3x the cost of a diesel or a gas one. And when you can repurpose what's already on the truck, then that makes it even more accessible. So I think there's some consideration that needs to be brought into that. I know it's been explored in the past, but given the shift in circumstances of everything that's going on at the federal level and the slowdown on electrification, I think it's something that needs to be heavily pursued and paired up. We represent a company that converts diesel trucks to electric. That's Electric. So we specialize and we know this very well. And the business case only gets better if you can promote having those CRUs become driven by the electric powertrain and battery.
Great. Thanks for your comment, Jackson.
Okay. Next person is Mike Macias. I've unmuted your microphone. Please state your name and affiliation.
Hi, team. This is Mike Macias with TCI. I wanted to clarify a little bit on the change for the rental and leasing companies. So the verbiage is changing to make the purchaser the rental or leasing company and rental and leasing company. But is that going to allow us to lease or rent the unit to one of our customers?
Yes.
Okay, so we would just be the purchaser.
Mhm.
And is there going to be some kind of reporting that we need to do, like ISEF, or every 6 months we report, through that side, who our customers are for that particular piece of equipment, or what are some of the steps there?
Sure. So I think for you all, it's somewhat status quo. All of the requirements of core that you've already been abiding by in terms of what you report, telematics data, and other information, that all remains the same. The difference is before this, if you were leasing to, I don't know, someone using a terminal tractor for 12 years or something, we wouldn't accept that application as coming from TCI. We would say it needs to come from this person who's having this long-term lease. We're changing that to just say, hey, if you're the leasing company, regardless of your lease terms, you'll be the person or the entity responsible for abiding by the core program. So I know that TCI has a number of short-term leases, so it's sort of the same thing, except we're not having that 3-year mark. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so basically now it doesn't matter if they're under 3 years or over 3 years. We'll be the purchaser. We'll abide by all the rules, but still be able to function in our normal operation or business model.
Correct. Although, we will, depending on how you submit your application, we do require we can still require the leases to see that information. But yeah, everything you said is right.
Yeah, correct. So we still have that layer of where at redemption we're gonna have to just provide the lease agreement, just to make sure that everything's up to par, regardless of whether it's less than 3 or more than 3. Do we have to list on that? Obviously, we have to list well, I guess this would not be the beneficiary. We would be the beneficiary. So we just need to provide you who we're leasing it to then.
Yeah, and if we want to get into specifics, I think I'd need to tap our program administrator. So happy to follow up with more detailed information once we get to the point where the IM is published.
Okay, and then the other layer too with our business models, some of these end up going into our own fleet. So for those, there would be no lease documentation to produce. We would just be the purchaser and operating in our fleet.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate that.
All right, go ahead.
And then we just have time for one more right now. And that is Terry Mannies. Apologies, I've unmuted your mic. Please state your name and affiliation.
Hello, my name is Terry Mannies, and I'm with Orange EV. We manufacture terminal trucks, and I'm very sad. That said, I would like to know, could you spend a couple of minutes talking a little bit more about when you sort of ran through the kind of data that you're looking for? for discussions about how to get terminal trucks, especially in ports and intermodal rail yards, back into the program. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about that because it seems like maybe we could come back later this year if we can convince you and if there's more money. So could you talk about that a little bit more?
Sure. So we're kind of looking for information in terms of sales data, operational costs, and anything that can help us kind of understand what the funding need might be. And also just figuring out what the threshold is for, you know, a heavy terminal tractor. What do the ports need? Getting that kind of information. And I think we do want to bring those larger terminal tractors back into the program. This year, we're just taking a beat, given the fact that we, as someone else pointed out, don't have a ton of funding compared to prior years. It's an opportunity for us to get information, and I certainly have Orange EV on my list of folks to reach out to get more specific information. So just anything that could help, and I welcome some one-on-one meetings with terminal tractor manufacturers to better understand how to bring them back in just for that higher weight capacity terminal tractor. And I think we might be at time. So thanks, folks. I know we didn't get to everybody, but we'll try and follow up, and you have my email now. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague Meredith, who will run through ISEF.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brianna Rocha, and I'm the implementation lead for the Innovative Small E-Fleet Pilot Project, or ISEF for short. Next slide, please. Today, I'll be providing a program background and recap, funding plan approvals, changes to the program, and implementation manual updates. And as always, there will be an opportunity to make comments and ask questions. So ISEF is a set-aside within the Clean Truck and Bus Voucher Incentive Project, also known as HVIP. It is designed to support small fleets and individual owner-operators in accessing zero-emission vehicles. Through providers, small fleets have an opportunity to access the benefits of vouchers through all-inclusive leases, peer-to-peer truck sharing, truck as a service, and other alternate business models. Small fleets, which are California-owned companies, nonprofits, and public agencies of 20 or fewer medium and heavy-duty vehicles and that have a revenue of less than 15 million are eligible. Government agencies and nonprofits are exempt from this revenue cap. In ISEF transactions, there are 3 primary parties: a provider, an HVIP-approved dealer, and an eligible small fleet participant. For the purpose of this program, a provider is an entity. For the purpose of this program, a provider is an entity that completes a provider eligibility application to propose an innovative solution offering for ISEF eligible fleets. Providers can be companies involved in the lease, rental, financing, subscription, and fueling of commercial zero-emission vehicles. And more information on this can be found on the HVIP website. I'll be dropping links later on when we take a pause. So next slide, please. Okay, now for the recap for fiscal year 2023 to 24. There were $14 million in voucher requests for 36 unique fleets. The average fleet size was 5 vehicles, which is the same as previous years. And 89% of these vouchers were for fleets domiciled in disadvantaged communities. And as for the breakdown of the project by solution, there were 13 lease vouchers, 11 financing vouchers, 56 truck as a service vouchers, and 14 rental vouchers. Recently, we have seen an increase in provider applications, so there are now 29 providers to choose from. And please note that numbers may change as vouchers continue to be processed. Next slide. As for funding, ISEF is temporarily closed due to the exhaustion of funds driven by high demand. It is anticipated to reopen in August following the release of an updated implementation manual and system processing updates. ISEF will reopen with 14.97 million in previously approved funding allocated through the Air Quality Improvement Program as part of the fiscal year 2024 to 25 funding plan for clean transportation incentives. Next slide. As noted in the funding plan, staff is exploring new options, including the development of a used truck voucher pilot concept, advanced fleet management assistance, and insurance. Staff has explored new solutions to barriers small fleets face when adopting zero-emission technologies, such as access insurance for heavy-duty ZEVs, and how to potentially provide advanced fleet management services for when an entity incorporates the ZEV into their fleet. A used vehicle voucher program could help foster the market by reducing costs and increasing the supply of vehicles. It would also allow CARB to collect valuable information to understand the challenges as the market develops, and to also inform future policies. We would also be careful to not create a program that would inflate the prices. In addition, insurance assistance and ongoing fleet management would help fleets successfully add these vehicles to their businesses. Staff has begun to explore the design of a used truck voucher pilot concept. Earlier this year, there was a request for information on the concept. It was held from January to late February, and submissions are available for viewing on the public docket. It is on the CARB website, and I'll be dropping a link on it later. And then the options mentioned previously will be covered more in depth in the Innovative Small E-Fleet Program New Options Workgroup, which will be held June 13, 2025. You can go ahead and register for that. I will also be including a link in the chat momentarily. Okay, here are a couple items that need clarification. They'll be updated in the implementation manual, or IM for short. As part of the financing solution pathway in ISEF, fleets have the choice of a Purchase Plus offering. Purchase Plus is a vehicle purchase bundled with additional services selected from a pre-approved list. This list of eligible services is flexible, and new service options may be submitted for approval. This offering stands to provide small fleets a purchase option when HVIP is closed. Given that this offering contains a vehicle purchase, ISEF will align with HVIP on a lifetime voucher limit of 5 at the higher small fleet voucher amount. And to clarify, all other ISEF solutions, including truck as a service, rentals, leases, and so on, will have no change to their voucher limit. It remains at 5 voucher requests per fleet per funding year. On the topic of aligning with HVIP, ISEF will be adopting the new voucher amounts as shown on the table that was presented by Inder earlier in the presentation. So that will take into effect once the program reopens. As for reporting for rentals, providers are required to submit a usage report every 6 months following the vehicle delivery. This requirement is in the current IM, however, it will be clarified in an updated IM. Now we can go on to the program timeline. So here we have a few important dates in the upcoming months. As I mentioned, ISEF will have a new options work group to cover the used truck voucher pilot concept, insurance, and advanced fleet management assistance on June 13th. Then ISEF is anticipated to reopen in August 2025 following the release of an updated implementation manual and system processing updates. Subsequently, CalSTART will hold an annual ISEF webinar following the implementation manual release. Okay, and then we can pause here for questions and comments.
Yeah, great. Great. Thank you. So first commenter I have is Sarah Montalat Verdu. I've unmuted your microphone. Please state your name and affiliation.
Sarah Montalat Verdu. I work at Exos Trucks. Have a few questions. So I'm not clear on the 5-unit cap. You mentioned that it's per funding year, but in the presentation, did I see lifetime? Can you please clarify?
Yes. So given we have this purchase plus offering and it includes a straight purchase, it does align with the 5 voucher limit lifetime at the higher incentive amount. That would have been that last column on the table. A fleet is still open to coming back and applying for more vouchers, but it would be at the lower base amount.
Got it. And it aligns with the same voucher amounts as HVIP in the table that we saw initially in the presentation?
Correct. And this is exclusively for purchase plus vouchers. Everything else will stay the same in terms of rentals, leases, truck as service, and so on.
Okay, perfect. Then if we would want to change providers for vouchers that are already in progress, or request voucher requests that are already in progress, do we need to reapply or restart the application, or can we do that while the application is in progress?
That would need to be brought up to our program administrator, which is CalStart. Through there, they would evaluate whether there's opportunity for case review, but that would be the process to do that.
Okay, perfect. And then in terms of regulation, we are seeing some current providers that are hesitant to accept some terms and conditions that don't seem to be under their control, such as ensuring that the vehicle resides in California. How can we work with providers on that? Is there something that CARB could do?
I didn't grab the first part. Sorry, can you repeat the first?
Oh, yes. I was saying that there are some ISEF providers that have been hesitant to accept terms and conditions as they are in the moment because there are certain requirements that they have to comply or agree to, such as ensuring that a vehicle resides in California throughout its time, and that's something that they cannot guarantee. So I was wondering if that's something that CARB has considered adjusting or working with the providers to allow for the ISEF program to continue rolling.
Yeah, there has been consideration, and we've had these conversations where there is hesitation sometimes, especially for instance, rentals. They have to have the vehicle with the small fleet for at least 200 days of the year, right? So, I mean, it is a good faith effort that you commit to these terms and conditions. However, we're open to having more conversations on this topic. So I'll make a note of it and bring it to the team.
Yes, please, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Matt Schrapp. I've unmuted your microphone. Please state your name and affiliation.
Hi, thanks again, Matt Schrapp, the Harbor Trucking Association. So exciting to see the forward progress on ISEF here. Just wanted to definitely make sure that there's ample notification for this working group that's going to happen in June. I think it's important to really talk through some of the challenges, especially the dealers are facing, and understanding some of the creative approaches that are available under ISEF, and then thinking about the amount, at least when we're talking about on the Class 8 side, is of course drayage being looked at as really from the heavy perspective as being the point of the spear when it comes to implementation of zero emissions equipment, that the discrepancy between the proposed voucher amount for all fleets, and it's great to have that fleet size caps removed, and I'd echo some of the organizations that highlight that. But I mean, when we're talking about a fleet of 30 versus a fleet of 20, even if they're in there with that $15 million annual revenue, that is a very large discrepancy. And I'm wondering if there's a better approach to that, considering that under ISEF you have some creative potential, and again, looking forward to working through what those potential new options could be. But $336,000 for a Class 8 battery electric, or, on the 420 side for Class 8, very attractive. And there is stacking capability with the Port Plus Up money that exceeds the base vehicle cost of the trucks in the Class 8 category right now. If we add another 150 on top, maybe the Edison money as well. So wanting to see this be simple as possible. It's unfortunate that we're not seeing some more simplicity on the redemption side thus far, but it definitely is much more cut and dry knowing there's no plus ups. But to the one concept relative to used vehicles, I think that it needs to be a combined approach with folks who are exercising a base HVIP voucher, which technically should be increased by different fleet size tiers. To look at those applicants and increasing the amount that they would receive if they were to commit to putting that truck back into some used capacity, because I don't know how we can try to convince ourselves that we're going to create a grant for a used vehicle when it doesn't exist. There is no secondary market for used Class 8 battery electric vehicles, unless you're going back to very first gen stuff in 2016, 2017. So just a comment about, especially, it's a laudable cause to create the secondary market, because that's typically where small fleets in that Class 8 size, that's where they buy trucks. They typically are not buying brand new vehicles. So I think some creativity needs to be applied in looking at a different tiered structure for the base amounts based upon fleet size, and reducing that small fleet voucher a little bit. It's just with the stacking that's out there, it seems high, and spread that money around to other fleet size, because no one can tell me with a straight face that the economics and operational realities of fleet of 25 versus a fleet of 20 warrants a 4x increase in what that smaller fleet would be receiving. So just some food for thought to think about, hopefully in June, when the conversations begin happening, about looking at the base voucher amount for fleets of all sizes or within tiered categories, and how they can help populate that used marketplace. Thank you.
Matt, I wanted to respond to that, Brina, just let me jump in. And all I wanted to make sure, I want to make it clear what that June workshop is for. It is specifically just to discuss the items that I think Brianna had in her slide, which would be the used voucher program, which would be any insurance assistance, and which would be any ongoing fleet management. As far as things such as different voucher amounts and so forth, I think that's what today has been more for. But I do want to point that out so that anyone on this call that's participating or that will participate in that June 13th work group, we have a lot of information to go over. It's an amazing amount of information to go over. All of those things, especially the used voucher program, are very complex, as you can imagine. And we probably won't even get through what we are trying to discuss that day. So I want people to understand the specifics of that workshop. So anyway, thank you. And thank you, Brina, for letting me jump in on that.
Of course, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next commenter, Wesley Lowe. I've unmuted your microphone. Please state your name and affiliation.
Hey guys, Danielle Smith with Kingsburg Truck Center. I accidentally logged in with my coworker here, Wesley Lowe. But with Kingsburg Truck Center, we're a dealer and we've been using the ISEF program. It's a great program. And I just have two quick questions on the funding table that was referenced earlier for HVIP. That will be for both the Purchase Plus program in ISEF and the rental side, or just for the Purchase Plus side of ISEF?
Yeah, so the new voucher table will apply for all of ISEF. So that'll be all solution types. What I was trying to clarify about Purchase Plus is that 5 lifetime cap on the higher amount, that was where it was a bit different. But in respect to truck as a service, rentals, leases, and so on, that will be the voucher table that will be included in the updated IM.
Okay, perfect. And then last question is so you can only utilize the Purchase Plus if HVIP is closed. Is that still applicable if ISEF opens up before HVIP opens up this year?
Technically, yes, but ISEF is planned to reopen after HVIP. So if at some point HVIP closes again, then that will become an option in ISEF.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Next commenter is Peter Tawil. I've unmuted your mic. Please state your name and affiliation.
Hi, Peter Tawil with Rise on Truck. This is my lucky day. Just like Matt, we got called twice. A couple of things. ISEF, can ISEF be more class equitable? I came from the Class 8 space, and so I totally understand. But one Class 8 voucher can consume a lot of money, and considering that we're probably talking about 15 million coming back, is my guess. Is there any way to balance it? Number one. And then I have a question after that, so I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah, as Ender stated previously, all those considerations, equity being one of them, were considered when coming up with these new amounts. And I don't see the table right now, but the Class 8 voucher amount still is relatively high in comparison to the others. So it's definitely something it's been considered, and we'll keep it in mind going forward if there's ever another opportunity to assess voucher amounts.
You mean for the next IM?
Probably, yes, for the next IM.
And then, as you know, and I was here at the start when ISEF was first started, and the dollar amounts were so great that it did let OEMs and dealers to get a little bit more creative, in some cases even more fraudulent, doing certain things. How are you guys going to police that better? Because there is one big case that everybody's aware of that pushed a lot of vouchers through in a very short period of time. How do we make sure that doesn't happen again? Because once that money's reserved, nobody can access it until you guys. So is there any more checks and balances? And my last question is there anything you guys can do with truckers? It's a real problem for us when we're doing our dealership voucher redemption. So I'll leave it with you on that.
Yeah, in terms of policing, that you referenced, we do take the time to review voucher amounts and all the submitted documents on the back end. So that's actually something we're focusing on right now as well. And Bruce, I see you popped right up. Can you?
I know you would, you may want me to chime in a little bit. And Peter, that's absolutely something that we can think about. As I know you're well aware, the voucher redemption process does go through a few steps. I'm not sure exactly how we would ensure that we were not giving money to someone that we didn't know was going to be a problem in the long run, or a contract was going to fall through, whatever the case is. But it's certainly something that we can think about. However, having said that, we do try and get that money back into the system as soon as we can, especially I think through the ISEF program. On the other side of that, small fleets are some of the ones that do take a bit longer because it's hard to get information from them. And again, I know that you know that from your time in this industry, that working with small fleets, it can be difficult and time consuming to get that information. And we have to be very cautious and make sure we do get all the information. So we do the best we can to funnel that money back in as quickly as possible. But again, we will look at that.
All right. Thank you, Bruce. I think we'll try to do one or two more comments and then try to close out with some remarks here. So next person is Claire Bachman. I've unmuted your microphone. Please state your name and affiliation.
Hi, everyone. Claire Bachman. I'm with Exos Trucks. And I have two comments and questions. First, related to the Purchase Plus lane and then also the used truck component. So I'll start with Purchase Plus because that's really how we've been utilizing ISEF since standard HVIP unexpectedly closed a little early in November. So we had our previous financing partner who was financing a lot of the vehicles for our small fleet customers through HVIP, become an ISEF provider and offer 36-month financing. Now they are a bank, and we haven't been able to get any of these vouchers created because of the ISEF terms and conditions language not really fitting those types of providers that fall under that purchase plus category. Some things that the dealer should sign or the purchaser should sign rather than the banks acting as a provider. So I'd love to talk about that more with you guys offline because it is a pressing issue for us right now. And like Peter Tawil mentioned, there's been a lot of kind of issues with HVIP and ISEF for new truck purchases. And I just, my personal opinion, I don't know if it's really a great time to get into, structuring new funding around used trucks, knowing that there's so much work that your team and CalSTAR has to do to safeguard and improve HVIP for new purchases. Like, my recommendation would be focusing there. I don't think it's a good time to introduce something entirely new that could expose you guys to potential fraud or processing issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Yeah, I'll touch base with you on the topic of the Purchase Plus. And in respect to the used truck voucher pilot, currently we're looking at the development of the concept. This actual pilot wouldn't launch until approved probably in a couple years. So these next stages would be just to do the research and collaborate to build the best project possible. Thank you.
Okay, and then the last one we're gonna have is Jeremy Ostrander. Uh-oh, just lost it.
Yeah, I'm
Jeremy.
about to.
Okay. Go ahead, Jeremy.
This is Jeremy Ostrander, electric vehicle choice. I guess my comment's more on the redemption side. As we've been trying to deploy EV vehicles, it has been slow paying, and it's actually slowed the process down. And Bruce mentioned, obviously there's a lot of data to collect. My concern is with the clean truck check and new regulations on the trucker side, and truckers being backed up as far as they are. Sometimes takes like 45 days for them to respond on the fleet's compliance, and the compliance that are changing in and out of compliance every day. I guess my suggestion is the moment we've submitted all the paperwork, get approval, get a voucher, as a dealer, our only responsibility should be to deliver, do the report of sale, and give the documentations that vehicle was paid for and delivered to the right customer, and we should get redemption. And at that point, the program should instead have a enforcement division, and that should be an enforcement issue. Because right now the dealer is being used as an enforcement tool, and it's not allowing us to get paid in a timely manner, which is slowing down the process of what we're trying to do is deploy EVs.
Thank you, Jeremy. Yeah, we're always looking into ways to improve the program and the voucher processing. So it's definitely something we'll have a conversation.
Yeah, that's done on the diesel side already. In the retrofit days, there was always a diesel enforcement division. And if we if we got a grant of some sort to retrofit, and that fleet didn't do what they were supposed to do, even in the HVIP agreement, it says for 3 years that customer has to follow these guidelines. So the moment the voucher is given and we deliver the vehicle, there should be a enforcement division on your end who follows that, and then either asks for money back or penalizes the customers for not doing that. But that should not be on the dealer. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And Young, I know we're almost at time, so I just wanted to add that I was having trouble dropping the link. So if anyone's interested in the information I was supposed to share via the chat, please reach out to my email.
Great. Thanks, Brianna. So we just got a couple minutes left, so I'm going to shorten my comments even a little bit more. First, wanted to say thank you to everyone who attended this Friday afternoon work group meeting. We got to like over 300, almost 350 attendees. Appreciate your time with us today. And we've heard lots of comments today. Wanted to truncate this by saying, especially on the HVIP standard side, that we heard you. We understand the concerns about voucher pricing and maybe a potential for decreased demand. As we've mentioned, we're really trying to take a balanced approach here with the reintroduction of large fleets back into it, but still trying to maintain equity. So we will take that back. And as mentioned, we will have an implementation manual for you with those voucher tables prior to reopening. And we're thinking probably sometime, I think at this point we can say it's going to be mid-August to early September. And on that note, that means for both core and HVIP. So I think I can share a little bit that we're thinking about staggering those so that both programs aren't open at the same time. I think our program administrator would appreciate some of that in there. And then if there are additional comments, like we mentioned, we will have a funding plan, work group meetings, and you're welcome to bring your comments during that period as well. So for all the commenters that we didn't get to today, please either email us, and we did make a list. We'll try to get back to you and respond to those as soon as we can. And we appreciate everyone's time today. Have a good weekend and take care. Bye-bye.